In the section 1 of Sri Isopanishad, the invocation speaks about how this entire universe is perfect. And mantra 1 speaks about the concept of Ishavasyam, that God is the proprietor of everything. And then mantra 2 speaks about how living in this consciousness of Ishavasyam it brings about all auspiciousness to a person, and that person can continue to live for any number of years. And mantra 2 speaks about who does not live in the conception of Ishavasyam, how they suffer. So in that context, today we are going to look into mantra 2. So first we will recite this beautiful verse together. In fact, it is highly recommended that we memorize all the 18 mantras of Sri Isopanishad. So let me share my screen. Kurvan eveha karmani jijivishechatam shamaha evam tvayi nanyate stosti na karma lipyate nare. Once again. Kurvan eveha karmani jijivishechatam shamaha evam tvayi nanyate tosti na karma lipyate nare. Kurvan eveha karmani jijivishechatam samaha evam tvayi nanyate tosti na karma lipyate nare. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation: one may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way. For that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man. So, Isopanishad is a very, very important scripture. One who understands this message deeply are carriers of goodwill to this entire world, which is in a very fragile condition. There is war, there is strife, there is so much of disagreement based on the externals of, race, caste, creed, sex, so much of discrimination. There are so many world talks for peace, but none of them are truly functional. So in this context, Isopanishad truly has the potential to bring about world peace. So all of you who are hearing this message actually can be powerful carriers of the goodwill of Lord Sri Krishna to the entire world. So before I begin, I humbly request each of you to please understand, what Isopanishad is trying to communicate and what Prabhupada is trying to tell us through his purports. If we can understand this message, then it is great good that we can do to ourselves and to the world around us. In fact, that is what Sri Isopanishad Mantra 2 is speaking about. Kurvan eveha karmani. That means one can continue to work this way. Which way? With the understanding of the principle of Ishavasyam. That is, to understand that Krishna, God, is the proprietor of this world, and out of his mercy, he has set aside something called the quota for me, and I should be grateful to that and not encroach upon others' property, knowing to whom it belongs. This is Ishavasyam consciousness. So if a person can develop this consciousness of Ishavasyam, for such a person, Kurvan eveha karmani, and he can continue to work, go on with his work. Yeah. Jiji vishe chatam sama. That means he can continue to live for hundreds of years. Yeah. Generally, the message of spirituality is finish your material life and go back to Godhead. So here's Isopanishad that is saying that you can continue to live for hundreds of years with the consciousness of Ishavasyam. Yeah. Evam tvayi nanyate tosti. There is no alternative to this consciousness of Ishavasya. Why? Because this consciousness does not bind one to this world. Na karma lipyate nare. So this is the beauty and power of developing the Ishavasyam concept. So this is what this entire second mantra is about. It's about karma. How one should act in this world in a way that one will not be bound by the loss of karma. Yeah. So the soul is by nature, the soul is eternal. Yeah, the soul is eternal, but being bound in this body, it is experiencing mortality. Yeah, the soul is immortal, but it is experiencing mortality being bound in this mortal frame. So how is that? It's just like, when you go out and watch a movie. Yeah. Sometimes we get so much engrossed in the movie that we begin to, feel for the characters. Like, let's say, if the heroine is going through some pain, yeah, some torture or some separation, we also begin to feel for the heroine, and we also sometimes start crying, empathizing with the pain of the person. Yeah. Although it's just a movie. Similarly, this material body is like a movie, and the soul is like the audience. Yeah. And we get so engrossed in this pastimes of this body that we become so connected to it, related to it. Yeah. And to the degree the soul is having this desire to enjoy, separate from the Supreme Lord, to that degree it is attached to this conception of this mortal frame, and lives in the conception of the taking this movie to be a reality. So, and that's how the activities performed in that consciousness binds the soul. And and the tendency of the soul is driven by lust. It gets into karma bandhana, performs activities which actually degrade the soul to lower and lower species of life. Yeah. And so for the person who has forgotten the Ishavasyam concept, they are living a sinful life. So for a person who is leading a sinful life, they're creating a bad future for themselves. And having created a bad future for themselves, what is the use of living hundreds and hundreds of years? Their destination is inauspicious. In fact, the next verse speaks about andam tamah pravishyanti. They are sent to the darkest regions of ignorance, who are living with the antithesis of Ishavasyam concept. Yeah, they're sent to the darkest regions of ignorance. So for a person who is leading a sinful life, what use is there to lead? They're creating a bad future for themselves, and there is no point in continuing to live. But for a person who is living the concept of Ishavasyam, who is God conscious, for them, they can continue to live for hundreds of years because their life is a life of obedience to God, living in harmony with the laws of God. Yeah, fulfilling the purpose of God, the mission of God. For in this way, they bring so much of happiness and auspiciousness into their own life and into the lives of people around them and into the world around them. So that such a life is, honored, and it is glorified even by the Upanishads, saying that, oh, such a person can continue to live for hundreds of years. They're giving their benedictions also. Jiji Chatam Sama. They can continue to live for hundreds of years. So this is the concept of the Ishavasyam, the message of the Isopanishad. So in this particular mantra, Srila Prabhupada in the purport describes about the nitty-gritties of karma. So there are three types of karma. Yeah. These three types of karma are karma or sukarma. Then there is something called vikarma. And there is the third thing called akarma. So, what is karma or sukarma? So, these are the prescribed duties that are stated in the scriptures. Okay, these are karmas. And there is vikarma. Vikarma are those activities that are prohibited by the scriptures, like breaking the four regulative principles. So these are acts that are prohibited in the scriptures. It is called vikarma. Yeah. And both karma and vikarma are binding. Like if you're performing good karmas, you get a kind of, you lead pious life. You lead, I mean, you go to higher planetary systems. Yeah. But still you're bound to the material world. Yeah. So karma is something, let's say it's good, but not good enough. It's not good enough because it does not liberate you from the bondage of this material world. So if one wants to be freed from the bondage of this material world, what kind of karma they have to perform? Akarma. It's called akarma. So these are the three types of karma. Number one is karma or sukarma, then there is vikarma, and there is akarma. It is not easy for a person to directly come to this platform of akarma. Yeah. Akarma. What is akarma? Akarma is acts performed as a sacrifice for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Yeah. So acting on behalf of God. And when such a person can perform, such a person who performs akarma is not bound by the materials. Na karma lipyate, is not bound by the laws of karma anymore. Is liberated. So then what is the gradual way of liberating oneself from this bondage of karmic cycles? Is to get there, slowly get to the realm of akarma, slowly and gradually. And how does a person get there? It is through the conception of, that is why it's Isopanishad is slowly building that platform. So you go to and building this platform in a very scientific way. So first appreciating what this world is. Yeah, this world in itself is complete. Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate. Yeah. So, and then, and God is a proprietor of this entire universe, entire cosmos, entire creation. That is what we have understood. And then we're talking about activities that liberate a person, and and activities that bind a person. So this is let me share. Let us read purport of Prabhupada. Yeah. So Prabhupada begins the purport by saying, no one wants to die. Everyone wants to live as long as he can drag on. Yeah, because we are by nature eternal. Yeah. So the living being is eternal by nature, but due to his bondage in material existence, he has to change his body over and over. And this process is called transmigration of soul or karma bandhana. So remember this word karma bandhana. We're going to discuss about this many a times. The living entity has to work for his livelihood because that is the law of material nature. And if he does not act according to his prescribed duties, he transgresses the law of nature and binds himself more and more to the cycle of birth and death in many species of life. Yeah. So here's where I've spoken about other life forms are also subject to cycle of birth and death. But in human life, there is a chance to get free from the chains of karma. Yeah. So intelligent men well know that both good work and bad work, that is karma and vikarma, equally bind one to the material miseries. Consequently, they seek that work which will free them from the reactions of both good work and bad work. Such liberating work is described in the pages of Sri Isopanishad. So it takes intelligence to understand these nitty-gritties of karma. Yeah. So one who's totally ignorant, ignores all kinds of laws and behaves according to one's whims and fancies, and misutilize their free will, and then glide down into lower species of life and into more and more, inauspicious destinations, performing vikarma. Okay, that's the lowest. There are higher than that is at least to perform pious work and lead a God-centered life in a way that I want my sense gratification, but I will bring God into my own business. Yeah. So this is at least fine. Yeah, better than the karma. So this is actually called the karma kanda section. So I'll tell you, there is a circle, let's say, which is called sense gratification. That is my personal enjoyment. And there is another circle called dharma. Yeah. So when these two circles intersect, say all of your engineering students, yet I guess you understand, when two circles intersect, there is an area of intersection, right? Two circles intersect, there is an area of intersection. So there is a circle of dharma and there is a circle of sense gratification. So this area of intersection is called the karma kanda. Yeah, the karma kanda section. That is dharmic enjoyment or religious way of sense gratification. So this kind of a religious enjoyment, it does not degrade one. It does not degrade one. So this is like, trying to include God into our life. Yeah, include Krishna or God into our sense gratification. But higher than that is the principle of akarma, where rather than including God into your program of sense gratification, you say, oh God, I am your servant and you're the ultimate goal of my life. Yeah, it's the highest consciousness in which one can perform one's activities, which is akarma. So that is such liberating work, and such work liberates a person from the bondage of karma. Yeah. So karma and vikarma both are bonding. It's good work and bad work. But if you're performing akarma, it is liberating. So you no more have to be bound to these material laws. So Bhagavad Gita very clearly speaks about this. Yeah, 3.9 onwards, the Supreme Personality of Godhead he says that one cannot attain the state of Naishkarmya or akarma without executing the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedic literature. So to come to the standard of akarma is not easy. It's not so easy. We speak about it, we understand it. Yes, akarma is something that will liberate me from the material bondage. But how do I perform akarma? Because it's externally the same activity. Whether you're doing your programming or, whether a housewife is cooking or you're performing your activities. Externally, they're the same. A person who's doing karma, especially sukarma and akarma, externally the activities are the same. Just like Arjuna and Duryodhana, externally both the activities are the same. Both are fighting the war. But what's different between Arjuna and Duryodhana? It's their consciousness. So that consciousness can actually transform karma into akarma. So what is that consciousness? Bhagavad Gita 3.9 speaks about it. Yajñarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So yajñarthat, so perform your whatever work you are performing as per your psychophysical nature, your prescribed duty, which is according to your varna and which is according to your ashrama. Yeah, perform the duty. But perform that as a yajna or sacrifice to Lord Vishnu. Anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. If you do it otherwise, if you're not doing it as a yajna, then it is that same activity is binding you. That means for the Newton's law of motion, every action has equal and opposite reaction. So for every activity you're performing, you're increasing your material life. Yeah. So by understanding the message of Gita that perform your work as a sacrifice to Lord Vishnu and thereby liberate yourself, a person is freed from this karmic cycle. So this literature can regulate the working energy of a human being in such a way that he can gradually realize the authority of the Supreme Being. So if you think deeply, you might get this question: how is it that if I simply perform my prescribed duties, I will realize God? So prescribed duties, what is the meaning of prescribed duties? Prescribed in the Vedas, that means they're given by God Himself. So if you're performing your prescribed duties, because it is mentioned in the Vedas, you're indirectly and directly expressing your obedience to God. So when you're in obedience with God and God's laws, very soon such a person will be favored by the Supreme Lord. So that is the beauty of performing one's prescribed duties. Yeah, that is in the next talk, I think 3.15. There is a 15 or 14. There's a beautiful verse that speaks about annad bhavanti bhutani parijanyat anna sambhava yajnat bhavanti parajanyo yajna karma samudbhava. These yajnas are born out of karmas, that is prescribed duties. Yeah. So yajna is actually born out of prescribed duties. If one is performing prescribed duties, they're actually performing yajna. And if they perform the same prescribed duties in the consciousness of offering it to the Supreme Lord and performing it for the pleasure of Supreme Lord Krishna, then that very activity will liberate you instead of binding you. So how do we understand this? There's a famous analogy. Like, for example, there is a person and he has murdered somebody. Such a person will be convicted. Yeah, such a person will be convicted. Please mute yourself. Yeah. So such a person will be convicted by law and he will be arrested. And the same person, if is yeah. And if the same person is performing the activities on behalf of the government, let's say, a person who is working in the military, he kills the other party. Yeah. Such a person is honored by the government and is given the medals of, Paramveer Chakra and all that. He's honored. Yeah. Why? He acted on behalf of the government. So it's the same activity, but if the first activity he's performing out of his own ego, out of his own, for his own, satiating his own egoistic desires, then he's jailed. Yeah. But the same activity, he performed it on behalf of the government. He's honored. So this is, if we can understand this, then we have understood the law of karma. So it's not much about what we are doing, but with what consciousness we are doing, for whom we are doing. That makes the whole difference in this law of karma. Yes. So when he realizes the authority of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva Krishna, it is to be understood that he has attained the stage of positive knowledge. Yeah. So, and in this purified stage, modes of material nature like goodness, passion, and ignorance cannot act, and he's able to work on the basis of Naishkarmya. So if a person can come to this platform, this amazing and beautiful platform of Naishkarmya or Nishkama Karma Yoga, To such a person, yeah, the activities cannot bind them to the cycle of birth and death. The same, there will be, he or she will be performing activities, but the same activities will be liberating them, taking them closer to God, the ultimate destination, and they're not binding them to the cycle of birth and death. So, mind you, it's the same activity, but it's just the change of consciousness that can bring about the difference in your activity. So that's how Prabhupada is concluding here, that factually no one has to do anything more than render devotional service to the Lord. Yeah, but bhakti is like the topmost. If you read the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna tells that, with single pointed devotion, you surrender unto Him. But if you cannot do that, execute the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, that is Vaidhi Bhakti. So we are all more or less at this stage, who all have, committed to a particular sadhana in our life. We are more or less in that stage. So Krishna also says, if you're not able to do this, do some good work and offer the results. If you're not able to do that, act selflessly. Do some altruistic work. Even that is okay. So this is how Krishna is very in a very broad-minded way giving different options as what you can do as a part of bhakti. So Prabhupada is saying in the lower stages of life, one cannot immediately adopt the activities of devotional service, nor can one completely stop fruitive work. Yeah, why? Because conditioned soul is accustomed to working for sense gratification, for his own selfish interest, immediate or extended. Yes, so basically one should start from where they are. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna also says, what can repression accomplish? So we should not suppress our nature and act against our nature or against our current condition. Yeah. So we are conditioned. We need to accept that and work from that platform. So conditioned soul is we are accustomed to working for sense gratification. So an ordinary man works for his own sense of enjoyment. And when this principle of sense enjoyment is extended to include society, nation, or humanity, it assumes various attractive names such as altruism, socialism, communism, nationalism, and humanitarianism. Yeah. So, but all these isms are attractive forms of karma bandhana, karmic bondage. But instruction of Sri Isopanishad is that if one actually wants to live for any of the above isms, he should make them God-centered. Yeah. So how do we understand this principle? Like, for example, let's say some people have this desire for giving annadana. Yeah, they believe in serving giving away a lot of food in charity. So let's say this person has come to a temple and says that I want to give annadan. Not temple, let's say he wants to perform this humanitarian work of giving food. So one thing is to, by being a premature spiritualist, one can say right away that annadana, what is there in anna? If you feed a person anna, next day it will become stool. What good you are doing for the person's soul. So this is, how an immature spiritualist thinks. But, a mature spiritualist understands that whatever ism is, like, for example, the desire to do annadana, it's an altruistic frame of mind. That is, one wants to do something good for the society. Yeah. So so how do we handle that? This person has come with an altruistic proposal. So instead of outrightly discouraging that person, one can actually convert the same act into a God-centered activity by suggesting, yes, you can do annadan, but higher than annadan is distribution of prasadam. The same food that you want to offer to the poor, first make it as an offering to the Supreme Lord. And when the Lord accepts that prasadam, if it is given to the poor and needy, not only does it satiate their hunger, but it will also elevate them on their spiritual journey. So in this way, any activity or endeavor, that can be spiritualized should not be demotivated. Yeah. So a person has to be step by step progress from the lower states of action to the higher stages of activities of Naishkarmya. This is the art of work. Yes, and here that is what Prabhupada is suggesting. All the socialism, communism, and altruism, although they sound very uh, uh, selfless, they're not actually selfless. They're just extended forms of sense gratification. But if the same things can be made God-centered, then all these activities can be spiritualized. Yeah. So in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna states that the God-centered activities are so valuable that just a few of them can save a person from the greatest danger. Yeah, neha Vikrama nasosti pratyavayo na vidyate. Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So even a small endeavor on this path of devotional life can protect one from the greatest danger. And what is the greatest danger? To glide down into the lower species. That is to miss out the opportunity that this human life is providing. That is the greatest danger one can experience. One can put oneself into. Yeah. So, but unfortunately, most of us are not aware of this kind of danger that is rare right at the end of this life. Yeah. So such a person is foolish because of the defective senses, a foolish man cannot see that this is happening. Yeah. So that is why Isopanishad advises us to exert our energy in the spirit of Ishavasya. Being so engaged, we may wish to live for many, many years. Otherwise, a long life in itself has no value. Then here is very, very powerful statement. I really love this statement. This is actually based on a particular verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto. A tree lives for hundreds and hundreds of years, but there is no point in living a long time like trees, or breathing like bellows, or begetting children like hogs and dogs, or eating like camels. And here's the conclusion. A humble, God centered life is more valuable than a colossal hoax of life dedicated to godless altruism or socialism. Yeah. So we'll just repeat this sentence. A humble, God centered life is more valuable than a colossal hoax of life dedicated to godless altruism or socialism. So if we are not leading a life of God centeredness, then we are putting ourselves in great danger, very great danger, whether we are aware of it or not. Yeah, so that is where the Vedas actually help us in waking up to the reality of life, to the purpose of life, to the purpose of this human existence, by reminding us how precious is this human life, what is its purpose, what is it meant to be used for. Yeah, so to remind us of this, the scriptures, especially the Upanishads, yeah, that is where there is Upanishad. It's bringing us closer to God consciousness and thereby saving us from great dangers. If not, we will just continue to live, by complicating our karmas and falling down into lower species and then again going through all the 8,400,000 species and after that again coming back to human life. How much of time is wasted? Just going through all these subhuman species, the bodies of subhuman species. Such a tragedy. Yeah, where life is all about eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. That's very unfortunate. If one has not utilized the human life for God realization, one has lost a golden opportunity. So, when altruistic activities are executed in the spirit of the Isopanishad, they become a form of karma yoga. Yeah. Such activities are recommended in the Bhagavad Gita, for they guarantee their executor protection from danger of sliding down into the evolutionary process of birth and death. Even though such God-centered activities may be half finished, still good, they are good for the executor because they will guarantee him a human form in his next birth. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked this question to Krishna about what is the destination of a yogi who has fallen, who has not completed his journey. They're called yoga bhrashta. Yeah, yoga bhrashta means somebody has taken up the path, but they have walked some journey in this life, but he has not completed or attained perfection in his yogic path. What will be the future of such a person? Arjuna asks Lord Krishna. Well, Lord Krishna then he assures him that, for a person who has not completed this path, in his next life, he's given a great opportunity by taking birth in, in Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe. He will take birth in Shuchinam, and that means in the families of great Brahmanas or who are very, enlightened, and Shrimatam, or very, very rich and opulent families. Yeah. So that, you don't have to waste much time in other, it's a very wonderfully set platform for uh, executing God consciousness. So for such a person, human form is guaranteed, and that too, he will be born in very, very good ambience and conditions, so that practicing spiritual life becomes easy. And especially very special souls who have almost completed their journey, a little more is left. They are born in devotee families. That is why Prabhupada always says that do not think these children are not ordinary. They're all Vaikuntha children. The children who are born in the families of devotees. So Prabhupada used to call them their Vaikuntha children. So, yeah, how one can execute God-centered activities is elaborately explained in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami. We have rendered this book into the English as a Nectar of Devotion. So this is going to be the next book after Isopanishad that we are going to study. Yeah. So we recommend this valuable book to all who are interested in performing their activities in the spirit of Isopanishad. So one thing is to understand the spirit of Isopanishad. Yeah, that God is, the origin of this universe, and He's the proprietor of everything. And a human being should live in this concept of Ishavasyam. And such a life is glorious, and a person can go on living for hundreds of years. So this is the spirit of Ishopanishad. But how to actually live that spirit? So yeah, if you see in this first and second text, especially the second text, what is spoken about is karma yoga. Yeah, but if you read Nectar of Devotion, it is completely about bhakti yoga. Yeah. So then how do we understand that reading a Nectar of Devotion can actually help one practice Ishopanishad? So that is the secret. So for no matter which yoga you choose karma yoga or jnana yoga or hatha yoga, for that yogic process to be successful, ultimately it is bhakti that gives that ultimate fruition. So how to perform that bhakti? That is stated in the bhakti literature, which is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And that will be our final book of study. So I will end here. I will just summarize what I spoke about today. So today we have learned the second mantra of Sri Ishopanishad, which speaks about that a person who is living in harmony with the principle of Ishavasyam can continue to live for hundreds of years because their activities they're not bound by their activities. Na karma lipyate nare. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explained about the three kinds of karmas: karma, vikarma, and akarma. And an intelligent person is the one who subscribes to akarma, liberating work. And this liberating work is actually the work that is suggested by the pages of Sri Ishopanishad. And then Prabhupada later speaks about how it is not easy to get to the platform of akarma, but no matter at which platform one is, one can transcend by slowly bringing God into one's life. Yeah. And Prabhupada gives that hope that by performing bhakti yoga, one can truly transcend these works and come to the platform of Naishkarmya. So the message is that if a sincere soul, in some way or the other, tries to bring God into one's life, no matter how one is leading one's life, just try to bring God, Krishna, into your life. Yeah. Then slowly and gradually, Krishna is so kind that he will take us back into the life of eternity, centered around his pastimes. Yeah. So right now we are eager to bring God into our pastimes and our activities of sense gratification and have them fulfilled. But at least that's a good place to start. Yeah. But eventually, out of Krishna's mercy, when we are following his uh, teachings, slowly and gradually one is elevated to the platform where one goes back and becomes a participant in the pastimes of the Lord. I will end here. Thank you very much. Any questions, discussions?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat.
Mataji, while performing, karma and many things, we know so many things. But then also, sometimes we perform the same mistake, and sometimes we are like, sometimes something happens, even it is not in our control. So what we should do at that time? There is some misunderstanding or some many things, and it's like many much complex karmas. So what we should do?
Yes. So this is, it is not an easy journey. The path of spirituality is not an easy journey because we do not know since how long we have been conditioned. Yeah. Anadi karma phale. Anadi, that means it's difficult to trace out actually when this, when all of us actually came into the contact with material nature and got bound. And after being bound, we've been through different bodies and, through different experiences. And because of which we have, our mind has, developed so many conditionings, deep rooted impressions, vasanas, samskaras. So, package of, so much of past conditioning. So, but the process of bhakti is so deep and that it can really purify a person of all that conditionings, give them the hope of being completely purified. So, but then until we reach that platform of the highest stage, there is a chance of falling down at any stage. That is why the answer to your question is what is needed? How can we protect ourselves? No matter how much we hear, we still keep repeating some mistakes. The answer to this is one has to maintain the association of devotees and especially have good friends who are devotees. See, Bharat Maharaj, he has, come to such a great stage in his devotional life, very advanced, came to the stage of bhava. Yeah. And he has literally conquered so much. He left his, we're all chasing after money and position. He's a king. He had such an amazing family. He left that as if nothing. And he didn't even look back at what he has left behind. Consider it as tomb. When he passes through, they don't look back and see what they did. With that kind of a detachment, he left behind his kingdom and family. He's so elevated. But he went into a jungle and he started practicing alone. That was the mistake he did. He had no association. Yeah. He went to a jungle and he was practicing alone. So that's how, after he fell down to the temptation of being attached to a deer. attached to an animal, taking care of an animal. So he fell down to lower species because of that attachment. So no matter how advanced a person is, even to the stage of bhava, which is just a penultimate stage of ultimate perfection, person can fall down. So what to speak of all of us, just sadhakas, neophytes. We are tested at every step. So what is the hope for us? Our hope is association. There was a huge discussion actually. Uh, what could have ensured that Bharat Maharaj did not fall down? So most of the answers is that he could have had association with him. If he would have a devotee friend, then as soon as he was getting attached to the deer, the devotee friend would have warned him, "Hey Bharat, listen, you're getting attached to a deer. It's not good for your spiritual life." So if you have some friends in our life who can pinpoint where we are going wrong, that's a great, great benediction. So we need relationships in our life who inspire us, who motivate us in our path. We also need friends, who will stop us and who will point out where we are going wrong. Can be friends or mentors. So such relationships can protect us. And ultimately, free will is ours. They're pointing out, but I don't hear. I'll act according to my own whims. Then we cannot really help that. Yeah, but if we take that pointer seriously, and if we act on that, then we are saved. So the key is association. It's always association. And at any point of time, we should not think, Prabhupada, there's a statement of Prabhupada. If you think you can practice bhakti without devotees' association, you are insane. So that's how we know, association can help us in different stages. Okay, thank you for that question. I'm sure it might have answered the questions of many other devotees also here. Yes. Okay, any other question? I hope that answered your question, Meghna.
Yes, Mataji, thank you so much.
Any other? Okay, I will end here.